Welcome, everyone, to another episode after a week off with myself, Bill Carns, and co-host Dave Champion of Totally Unprepared.
Yeah,
we are totally unprepared. It's been a week off.
A week off, I'm a mess.
Yeah, I took a week off last week. The reason we didn't have a show is my fault, or my doing, I should say. I would call it a fault. I went down to see some preseason baseball games the last 3 days with my dad and my brother, which is kind of an annual event for us. Went and saw the Cubs and the Dodgers each play a couple of games and had a good time.
Of all the things we've talked about in the last couple of days, that didn't even come up.
No, well, you know what? I'm really not a baseball fan.
Okay, so it's family thing.
But yeah, my dad is a Dodgers fan, lifelong Dodgers fan. My brother's a Cubs fan for many years because, I mean, they were on WGN broadcast all across the country. He's got some friends from Chicago who used to go. He's gone and seen a couple games at Wrigley Field. So I'm just there. It's a family thing, yeah.
Right on. Now I know why we didn't talk about it.
Yeah, that's why, yeah.
So we do have something we want to talk about, though.
A couple of things, actually, yeah.
Many.
Not the least of which is the Boston bombing suspect got found guilty on all 33 charges, 17 of which could potentially carry the death penalty. So now the jury is supposed to be going into the sentencing phase. And of course, all this information is new just a couple of hours ago, based on the filming of this show. You're watching this on Thursday. We're recording it Wednesday, so this is new information.
Maybe old news to you by the time you watch the show.
Yeah, it may be. So
now, Bill and I were chit-chatting a little bit before the show, and Bill and I have a common, I don't want to call it belief, a common
understanding
I think would be, of the Boston bombing. Bill and I both believe that it's a false flag operation and that these two knuckleheads are just exactly that. They're knuckleheads. And
patsies.
One is dead and the other is getting railroaded. There's any number of reasons that Bill and I feel that way, and I'll share one of my reasons with you. The FBI, I can't pronounce these Chechnyan names, so I'm not even going to try. There was a guy who was older than the two brothers involved in the Boston bombing, who lived down in Florida. He was a former MMA fighter, and he died under extremely suspicious circumstances.
He was, let's preface, he was killed under very strange circumstances.
Now, the FBI had been in contact with him. The FBI believed he knew something about these cats involved in the Boston bombing or the bombing or something. And so this guy was ready to go home for a visit, and they kept persuading him to wait and wait and wait. They said, "We think you're a material witness, don't go." And he was cool. He was like, all right, I'll hang out. And he delayed his trip a couple of times. I'm sure he was getting a little irritated by the time the FBI finally went down to see him. And a single FBI agent, he took 2 Massachusetts state troopers. And then when they got there, they hooked up with whatever the local PD was there for that.
A couple of Florida cops.
Yeah. And so depending on which news version you read, there was 4 or 5 municipal police officers present and a singular FBI agent.
All packing.
The senior FBI agent, or the single FBI agent, a guy named McFarland, goes into a windowless room with this guy, and supposedly the guy was starting to write out a statement. And suddenly he lost it. Now, this is another reason it stinks to high heaven. There's 2 versions of what happened. There was the version that the FBI released on day 1, and there was the version that they released on day 2. The version that they released on day 1 is that this Chechnyan fellow, who I think he was about 30, 32, that he had attacked the FBI agent, and because the FBI agent felt as an MMA fighter he could not fight him off, that he had shot him, and of course,
dead center in the chest.
Dead center chest shot, right? Because that happens when you're wrestling, right? You get dead center chest shot. It's not like you would do like right across the desk, okay? And then the second version that came out was, he had attacked the FBI agent with some sort of a stick or pole.
Yeah, some sort of an instrument of...
Yeah, so the FBI's story as to why the agent shot morphed over time.
Yeah, it wasn't a UFO, it was a weather balloon. Forget about the UFO story.
Right, now, also, there's municipal cops on the other side of the door. They didn't hear any yelling, any screaming. Nobody called for help.
No, just a gunshot.
Yeah, suddenly there's a gunshot. And this witness at some level is now dead.
Yes.
Along with all of the other things that are the on-site Boston thing that cause you and I to think that this is a setup.
there's a number of things that have caused me great concern over the Boston thing. And of course, in the wake of it, what ended up happening, Dave, was, of course, you had police that were doing house-to-house searches in a neighborhood, no warrant, no lawful justification whatsoever, but people weren't given a choice.
Right.
And there's a few quotes that I want to run through here. One of them is from a former national security advisor named, help me if I pronounce this wrong, Zenu Brzezinski.
Yeah.
Yes.
Close enough.
He gave testimony to the Senate one time and said the war on terror is, quote, a mythical historical narrative. Okay? So, and then we have James Madison, when he was president of the United States just a couple years back, said, if tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. Okay?
Let me give Kissinger, I'm going to paraphrase, I don't have the quote. Kissinger said, the definition of terrorism are people who oppose the Western power structure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The road to tyranny is paved by claims of necessity. Okay, so we're going to go house to house because we need to see if there's any other suspects there. Yeah, sure. And then, of course, we had William Casey, CIA director, appointed under President Reagan. In his first address to his staff in 1981 said, we'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. That's pretty powerful.
We're pretty much there.
Yeah, that's 35 years ago almost. And then, of course, the final quote is not love not unlike the unlikely not it is unlikened to, by Leon Phelps in The Ladies' Man. Great movie.
The Ladies' Man.
Yeah, just throwing that out there.
But you're very right about Boston. And the thing that killed me was all this stuff post the marathon bomb. Boston strong. Mm-hmm. No. Boston wimps. Okay? These guys rolled over and let a militarized law enforcement presence bend them over and do them dry because guys with guns showed up.
Yeah, you know, I actually had a discussion just after that. I happened to be in Washington, D.C., and I was having a discussion with a guy who was on the same trip that I was on, who was originally from Boston, younger guy. Mm-hmm. He's 20-something years old. And we were chatting a little bit about guns and things like that. He was interested in what my professional life had been when I was doing that. And he said, well, you know, tell me why somebody needs to have an AR-15, especially like I'm from Boston, and in downtown Boston. Why would somebody need to have an AR-15 in Boston? So I said, oh, Boston, you mean home of the Tea Party? You mean home of the Revolutionary War? You mean just where some of the guys from Concord and Lexington ended up fighting? That Boston? The Boston where the U.S. government just went armed house to house to house looking for people that didn't have anything to do with anything else and without a warrantless, totally warrantless searches? That Boston? And he says, I see your point.
Isn't it Samuel Adams, I believe, was from Boston?
Matter of fact, he was.
His bar was.
Yeah.
You know, and who can forget that picture? Guy with his little, you know, Nikon camera, whatever, in his second floor window of his home, armored personnel carrier on the street, and a cop in this armored personnel carrier up through the hatch, pointing in with his rifle at a citizen in his own window of his own home. Just a citizen taking a picture, and he's pointed in at the citizen with his rifle.
Yeah.
You know, it's a damn good thing it wasn't my neighborhood, because I don't think I could have...
Snapping pictures through your loophole.
Exactly so. And you know what it reminded me a lot of was New Orleans after the flood, after Katrina.
Oh, okay, yeah. When the feds came in?
Yeah. You remember all the footage of, well, first of all, it's Nagin, you can't have a gun.
Yeah.
Which the federal court subsequently said was completely unconstitutional.
Yeah, and they had the National Guard going house to house to house.
Yeah, National Guard, cops from all over the country teamed up together. You know, I can't tell you how many videos I watched of them busting through people's doors and grabbing people and throwing them to the ground and confiscating their firearms. You know, it's like, is this even America?
Yeah, and there was a National Guard officer, and I forget which rank or his name, but I remember that the orders were coming in to do this, and he said there is no way. That violates my oath and the Constitution. There's absolutely no way I will command my guys to do that or have any part of it.
Good for him.
You can assign us to do something else. Well, no, they assigned them to do other things because, you know, they had National Guard doing other various things. But, I mean, how lawless. Of course, you had the cops that gunned down those people on the bridge. There was all kinds of video of cops and others who worked for various utility companies and government agencies that were going in and looting the same stores everybody else was. So speaking of cops, we also had the cop in North Carolina who fired 8 rounds into the back of a suspect, killing him, who is now fired and charged with murder.
Yes.
Finally, we have a cop who shot somebody running away in the back, unarmed, is finally actually charged with murder.
Yeah, I think the law enforcement community is starting to sense the outrage of the public. So I think some of these police chiefs and mayors and city councils, I think they're starting to get like a hot cat on a hot tin roof now.
And it's long overdue. It's far past time that they act.
Yes.
However, thank God that they're at least doing something finally.
And you know, nothing would have happened to that cop absent the video.
Absolutely.
He said he was in fear for his life. The guy tried to grab his taser. Now, I watched the video footage, as did you. And from what I can see, I am unclear. The one version I read was that the officer threw his own taser on the ground to give himself justification to shoot.
Yeah, like a throwdown, sure.
I didn't see that on the tape. But my thing is, even if I'm the bad guy and I'm wrestling for your taser, and
that was my taser under the table.
And I drop the taser and run away, where is that justification for this?
Because you have to realize that due to Tennessee versus Garner, the fleeing felon law, if you will, the police can only use lethal force if they can articulate that the person is a lethal threat to themselves or anybody else if their escape is successfully facilitated.
Right.
Which, that's really difficult to argue with this guy, even if it was wrestling over a taser. For God's sake, it is a less lethal device.
Right. And if he was wrestling for the taser, it might have not been that he was trying to harm the cop. It might have been like, I know many, many people who have this sentiment. I don't want to be tased.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm close enough and I see the taser come out, I'm going for that taser because I don't want to get tased.
I'm going to lay a prediction down that this is somehow or another going to be pled to something like involuntary manslaughter, which is the lowest level of one person causing the demise of another. Involuntary manslaughter. That may
be the only way to get a dumb jury to convict, because they always say, come on, I was in fear for my life, and the jury acquits.
And he may plead to it. He may plead to it. We'll find out.
And we'll be back right after these words. And we are back, and it's time for... What is up with the younger generation having no knowledge, having completely lost sight of the sexual revolution? Now, if you think I'm going to talk about sex, I'm really not, because that's not what it's about. It's more of a cultural thing, right? Bill and I often talk about politics and culture on this show. So this is the culture angle of it. And it strikes me, I just completed reading not too long ago the book The Rape of the Ape, written in 1973. And it deals almost exclusively with the prior to development into the sexual revolution and a little bit, wee bit afterwards. Now, the sexual revolution, to me, I was a teenager in the mid to late 70s. And so the sexual revolution was right there. I mean, it was a part of our lives. My generation didn't even think of it as a sexual revolution. We heard about the sexual revolution, but the changes it made were simply a part of our world. And we could see how it had changed. We talked to people, older brothers, parents, uncles, so forth. And we could see that evolution of how it had been and where we were, and we thought it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool, and I'm not talking about being a young guy and having sex. That's not what I mean. I mean to take off all those old shackles that had our parents and grandparents acting like hypocritical asses. So I'm now am in my 50s, and I find, I've continued to live with that ethos of the sexual revolution, and I find that the young generation, people who are, say, now in their teens, maybe in their 20s up through about 30 years of age, they have no idea of what the sexual revolution was and what changes it wrought. And most disturbingly, here we are in 2015, and this new generation is like the generation back in 1960. They've got the same hang-ups, the same issues, the same problems. Let me give you an example. I personally do not ascribe to the double standard for men and women when it comes to sex. Let me give you an example by way of explanation. You know the old drill, right? If a guy has a bunch of sex partners, what is he? He's a stud, right? And the old ethos was if a gal, she likes sex and she has several sex partners, oh, she's a slut. Okay? I've always thought that was absurd. Now, I certainly understand issues pre-birth control. There could be some serious consequences. But in the age of virtually bulletproof birth control, if I like sex or a woman likes sex and I choose to have sex and she chooses to have sex with various partners that they like and enjoy, I've never been one to judge based on that. Just the time that I grew up and probably to some extent the area I grew up. But I carried that sexual revolution message with me through my life. So now I'm talking to some young people, young guys, and I was shocked to hear the following. There's a young guy I know, he's 17 years old, super bright kid, very impressive. I actually asked him, I said, because he's planning to go, he hopes to go to West Point. And I said, who's the only person to ever make it through West Point, the first cadet to ever make it through West Point, the only cadet to make it through West Point, with no demerits whatsoever? She's like, Robert E. Lee. I'm like, okay, that's pretty damn impressive for a 17-year-old. Smart kid. And so we're talking about some gal who's his age, and you know she's a pretty cute gal, and I'm kind of teasing him that maybe he'd be interested in something like that. And he says, no. I said, really? She's good looking. Why the face? And he says, well, you know, she likes sex. What does that mean? Because I'm thinking, I like sex. I mean, what am I missing here, right? So, well, you know, if she likes a guy, she has sex with him. It's like, is there supposed to be a punchline there? And I found out in talking to him more, it was that old double standard that I thought was gone. That because this gal had had several sexual partners throughout her tenure in high school, she was now a tainted lady. She was no good. She was not worthy of his time or attention. Of course, does he want to have sex? He does. So it's like guys want to have sex, but then when they have sex with somebody who says yes, and the person who says yes, it's nuts. The other phenomenon that I've noticed, and this also goes back, I think, to say the 1950s mindset that I find just bizarre. And I'm trying to say this as politely as I can. There seems to be this ethos with gals in their late teens, early 20s, that if they say yes and the act is done, they own that guy from that moment on. Now, if this was just a subtle disagreement, you know, benign, doesn't matter, I wouldn't be talking to you about it. The problem is it causes massive problems because, of course, men don't think that way. When a man engages in sex with a woman he likes, unless it's been like a year-long courtship and he's madly in love, short of something like that, a guy doesn't consider that he's owned because he did the deed with a gal. But yet I notice a lot of these young gals, it's like we've lost the whole message of the sexual revolution, that if they agreed to have sex and it was done, that they owned this guy. And you can imagine the controversies and the conflicts and the angst and the heartbreak and the needless dissension when the gal assumes that she owns this man now, and the man is like, well, we had sex. We didn't get married. And I'm not talking about it theoretically. I have noticed it causing an awful lot of strife and discontent. So, Bill, what do you think has happened to this message? And I don't mean necessarily, free love. That's not what I'm talking about. You remember the old, everybody, banging in the park, and that's not what I'm talking about. Just more that having sex is not something that you judge somebody over, and having sex is not something that automatically invokes ownership.
Dave, I look at this from a slightly different angle. I think everybody has their own workups on it. And just so you understand, Dave was talking to a young fellow about a young lady. In Nevada, the age of consent is 16, so they're actually allowed by law to have these discussions and relations. So just for everybody to know.
And in states where they're not allowed, they do it anyway. So
yes, yeah. But from a legal perspective, anyhow, like for instance, there's a friend of mine. You actually know who this is. We'll talk later about names. But young fellow, handsome guy, he would work here in southern Nevada, but he would reside in Southern California. So he was back and forth. He lived 3-4 hours away. And he had a girl that he was dating here, but when he was back home, there was 3 or 4 other girls he was dating, right? But so he didn't have a problem with, hey, it's just we're all sexually free and going to do what we want. Until he found out that the girl here, one time when he was gone, as a matter of fact, he and I were on a trip, comes back and finds out that she had been with some other guy. And oh man, there's a real problem
double
here.
Standard again.
And that was the thing I'm like, wait a minute, wait. I was just with you.
With her, some other gal.
We went to California to go have some fun, hang out with some other friends, and I mean, this is several years ago now, but I mean, we were not too discriminate, and it's like,
I'm shocked.
I know that you were with somebody else when we were gone. You're not telling the girl that's here now back in Southern Nevada, but somehow you find out, she says whatever, that there's this other guy. And this other guy, I remember how it worked out, because this other guy that she had seen here all of a sudden became very clingy. He became clingy. Now, this girl, for all intents and purposes, based on what you were articulating earlier, would be then described as a kind of a dirty slut, if you will.
Yeah.
She was just laying it out there. Okay, that's fine. And that's,
But so was he.
So was he.
There you
he
go.
was just a bit of a dirty slut, if you will. But there was a double standard in his mind. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
Right.
She's doing less than you're doing, and it's okay for you, but not for her. Come on.
Yes, and now I bet he experienced a lot of emotional conflict about that.
He did. He had angst over the whole thing.
And my thing is, and I don't mean to minimize when people are in love. That's not what I'm talking about, because clearly this is not a love thing you're talking about, okay? But if you're just enjoying the pleasure of having sex with another person or persons, separately or simultaneously, whatever.
Here we go.
My thing is, why not just hang loose? Speaking of your buddy as the example, dude, okay, she did that.
You know what it is? People are all wired different. People are all wired different.
So what happened to the sexual revolution then? Explain this to me.
I don't know, man. That was before my time. It had already evolved.
Please.
I thought the sexual revolution was a contraption that you could buy and some assembly required.
The people in this town think you're my grandfather, so.
Really?
Yes, because they always refer to you as Mr. Carns when they're talking to me.
Well, that's a sign of respect.
Yes.
And I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yes.
All right, so,
otherwise the sexual revolution could be like a strip club.
Stuff? What's that about?
I think that's actually a bit of a sickness. I do. I mean, if there's some articulation beforehand, right?
Right.
Everything short of signing a contract, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so, we've been dating, there's this, there's that. Have you seen the movie A Million Ways to Die in the West?
No.
Okay, it has Seth MacFarlane, who is the guy who started Family Guy and American Dad, right? And it's a very funny movie. There's a lot of satire in it, and there's a couple. One of them is a chick. She's a bar girl, if you will, fairly dirty mouth, who's dating this other guy who's a virgin. And although she's a a lady of the evening in the movie, if you will, and very filthy mouthed about it. They had never gotten together. So it was like, okay, this is work and this doesn't count, but this is how we actually feel about things. And it was kind of
complicated.
Funny. It was actually kind of funny. But I really think that it's everybody is wired a little differently. Some people feel very clingy and other people just do not. They're free and open. And you can't have people on opposite ends of this spectrum be able to come to an agreement, it doesn't seem.
All right, so if I hear what you're saying, then you're saying that somebody who's minded more like me, that, you know, kind of live and let live and enjoy and whatnot, should not knock boots with somebody who's very clingy and wants to grab on. And
yeah, I think it's your due diligence to have to identify that early.
And we'll be back.
We're back. Check it out. You know what really grinds my gears? Computer technology. I was just sitting here ranting for 6 solid minutes when our engineer walks in and says, hey, the computer stopped recording. Talk about taking the wind out of my sails. Computer technology. I have to say, this is completely different than my unrecorded rant that now you don't get to see unless somehow I fall back into it, because now I'm focused on having to be all amped up about something else that bothers me. So now it's all new. You know, I have to say, Dave, you used to be a PC guy, now you're a Mac guy, and I've got to tell you, I am hoping to be able to release the bonds of the hell of PCs and switch from the dark side into Macs someday. Maybe we should get Macs in the control room. Back onto it. By the way, Sarah Brady, she's dead. Yay!
Yeah, that's right. All right.
No more Brady campaign matriarch. I was on Dave's show earlier this week, and we toast always to whenever there's a monumentous douche who kicks the bucket. And we had a couple of shots. As a matter of fact, I brought in some bullet bourbon, appropriately enough, to toast the timely demise of Sarah Brady. Thank you. Where was I 6, 7, 8 minutes ago? All right, I know where I was. When people are so small-minded, they just start complaining about little things. And I don't know why it gets under my skin, some of these things, but it does. Here's one. You go to a restaurant. Where are the bathrooms located? Usually down a hall, if you go to a decent place where you sit down. Any place, really. And more often than not, the women's bathroom is further down the hall than the men's. And women complain about this. Why is it that I have to take an extra 8 or 9 steps to get to the bathroom? Why can't the men walk further? Nah. Ladies, let me tell you why. It's called security. If you're walking down a hall and you're a man and your bathroom comes first, there is no reason for any man to be walking further than that door. Imagine if there's the woman's bathroom and it's first, the men's is down the hall. And there's a man who's there with some woman, be it wife, girlfriend, whomever, somebody he doesn't know. He's stalking, is a little bit nuts, who knows what it is. She goes into the bathroom, if nothing else, just for a break away from this guy, you know, cry a little bit, tears, whatever. And the guy walks in there to press this ugly conversation. It's going to be a little bit tougher to notice right off the bat because he has to walk by the woman's bathroom to go in there. However, the woman's bathroom is further down the hall. It's a little bit easier to spot. A guy storming down the hall doesn't mean that he has to go really bad because he just passed the men's bathroom and he's walking the extra 8 or 9 steps down there to the women's bathroom. Somebody's going to see it and handle it right now. Ladies, that's why the bathroom's a little further down there. A little bit more privacy, a little bit more security. You should enjoy and revel and appreciate that. If you're a restaurant owner and the women's bathroom is closer than the men's bathroom, remodel and fix that problem. Another thing that bothers me in these public bathrooms, guys that don't wash their hands. There's some guys that just never wash their hands when they go to the bathroom. They just don't. If you don't want to wash your hands in your own home and then go fix yourself a meal, hey, have at it. But in public, that's really pretty nasty. And ladies, there's a telltale sign whether or not your man washed his hands when he went to the bathroom and came back. touch his hand, see if it's a little bit moist. If it's got a little bit of moisture left over from when he washed his hands, okay? That's the type of moisture you're looking for. If not, you need to find yourself a cleaner man or send his ass back in there to get cleaned up. And another thing is you've got either the paper towels that you can dry your hands with or the air dryer. By the way, Dave, I like the Tyson Airblade. My favorite type of air dryer, it's really pretty cool. I want one for my own house. I think it's ridiculous that these restaurants, ballparks, movie theaters, whoever has it, says something like, to protect the environment and stay green, we're no longer using paper towels, we're using air dryers. You know, you got to go through a little bit of tree cutting and processing to make a paper towel. You got to go through a little bit extra processing to provide the power to the power grid to power the blow dryer. It has nothing to do with the green environment. It has to do with not having a mess, because far too many people, and ladies, you do this too, some of the most disgusting places in America are a public woman's bathroom, and you all know it. When people take the towels to dry their hands, and they don't end up in the trash can, they end up on the sink or more likely on the floor, strewn about. Don't be such a pig that you can't take your paper towel and drop it in the garbage can. If the garbage can is overflowing and the paper towels are hitting that and dropping off, you know, off the rim, no good sort of thing, go tell somebody who works there, hey, the bathroom needs a little attention. Somebody could probably handle taking the trash out. I have on a number of occasions, dozens of occasions, told somebody at a facility who worked there that the bathroom needed attention for one reason or another. I have never gotten anything other than a thank you, I'll get somebody on that, or something of the like. I've never had anybody pissed and said, so what? Go clean it yourself, you're gonna use it. Never had that. Don't be afraid to tell them. They wanna know. But here's the other thing. You don't have to create the problem. Don't be so inconsiderate, such a pig, such a degenerate that you can't throw stuff away in the proper receptacle. Now, let me add this to people who have public restrooms in their businesses. Have a trash can near the door. Virtually all restrooms have a open the door in, or you have to pull it open to get out. Okay, because so many people don't wash their hands, which, by the way, if you have the air dryer rather than the towels, the chances of someone actually washing their hands dramatically diminishes, because they don't want to stand there doing the hair dryer thing. They're not used to it. They wash their hands and they use a towel. It's what people do. It's what we're accustomed to in the Western world. We don't just shake it off and roll. Okay, we use a paper towel. If you have the air dryer, great. That's because, again, we don't want to have the mess. But if you have the towels, have, if not the trash can, a trash can near the door. You know what I do? I wash my hands twice. I wash my hands when I first walk in, do my business. I wash them again when I walk out, because these could have been doing all kinds of daily chores between bathroom breaks. I want these clean before I have to start grabbing my gear and doing what I need to do. And then again, wash any residual off when I leave. Now, more like a Marine than a Navy man, they taught me not to pee on my hands, all right? I had to throw that out there. You should know what I'm talking about. But you need to have a trash can near the door, because like when I'm done, I'll wash my hands, do the towel, dry my hands, turn off the sink with the towel, and then I'll grab the door knob or the handle with my toweled hand and then throw it out as I'm walking out. You need to have a garbage can there, because there's been so many other people that if I wash my hands, do the towel, then I grab the handle and pull it to go out, so many other guys have not washed their hands before they touched that same handle or doorknob. I ain't touching it with my bare hands, because you're kind of gross, gentlemen. You need to keep it clean. Ladies, please follow the same ideas of a little bit of cleanliness. You have any idea how many times every year you have restaurants that have people that get sick because somebody who doesn't work there uses the restroom, it couldn't be any problem, goes back to work, starts cooking and using things with their hands, haven't been washed, no gloves, and they get sick? It happens all the time. You don't want any of that from somebody else. You certainly don't want it from yourself. And you should be thinking ahead of the game. Do it right. I mean, that's just kind of nasty. Dave, do you wash your hands when you leave a public restroom?
Yes, but in all the time I've known you, I never knew you were a germaphobe.
I'm not a germaphobe.
No, it didn't sound that way at all. for the
really
last
not.
9 minutes, it didn't sound that way.
We don't walk in here and I don't take and spray Lysol all over this. I'm not Howard Hughes about it.
You just make Noah do it before we get here.
Yeah, well, our engineer will take care of it. No, I'm really not a germaphobe, but I got to tell you, when we're talking about bodily fluid and functions that get on your hands, that is not really something that I really care to encounter. I actually have a joke. Like, I'll go into I'll wash my hands, shake somebody's hand, and I'm like, oh yeah, I just took a leak and I forgot to wash, right? So
I think we all done that.
Yeah, it's a joke, right? But it's kind of gross. I don't want to be introduced to your bodily functions, Dave Champion, or anybody out there. I just don't. It's not my gig. Wash your hands.
Thankfully, from my point of view.
Wash your hands. I mean, you've seen it where guys will go in and they'll literally not use the sink, and then they'll sit there and they'll fix their hair and then walk out. It's like, did you just rub your hands through your hair and do like this all over your face, not washing your hands?
You know where I'd like to see all facilities go to is like you see in many of the casinos in Vegas, and ironically, just in a place like Walmart, where all they do is they have the opposing walls, so there's no physical door. You just walk around, nothing is visible. And if you want water, you wave your hand under the nozzle and water a mat.
The no-touch facility.
And then you can take a paper towel, or you can, what do you call it, the blade, the air dry blade?
Yeah, the air blade. Yeah. Use the air dryer.
You can do that. And I kind of think, because by the time some sort of like epidemic strikes, what do we see with Ebola?
It's a little late.
When they brought some Ebola guys back here, and we know the protocols in the hospital were not set and things went poorly. And
due to cleanliness.
My thing is, when an epidemic strikes, it's too late to try and get yourself positioned then. And we live in a Walmart's a perfect example. How many people plow through a big city Walmart in a day? A week?
Oh, yeah. Thousands upon thousands.
So epidemics historically have been bad, but we weren't living in as condensed an environment as we are today. I mean, it was unheard of 150 years ago to have 12 million people in one place. So now we've got those kind of numbers, and we tend to concentrate at places like movie theaters, grocery stores, Walmarts. And so I think that it is prudent as a society, if you own a business, especially if you're a major corporation, you've got some funds to work with, to prepare this cleanliness you're talking about, not just in the personal aspect you're talking about. Did you do popcorn the second time? I don't think you did.
No. Yeah, it's like you don't want somebody who hasn't washed their hands go dipping into the popcorn. A few of us are sharing.
Yeah, after he said that the first time when he got technically interrupted, I was like, I'm not sure I will ever think of popcorn the same. Every time I reach over, so like in a movie theater now, and
did you wash your hands?
Yeah.
Taking handy wipes with you. But I'm with you on a couple of aspects. First of all, because of the door thing, you walk into a restroom, you go in, take a 90-degree right, take a 90-degree left. There's a wall separator. Yeah. I love that. And there are a number of bathrooms now you can go. I know that the airport in Las Vegas, McCarran International, they are virtually all, not all, but virtually all the restrooms that I've encountered in that airport are touch-free. Touch-free water, touch-free soap, touch-free towels, and there's no door. You're just walking around. I like that.
That's especially with the volume of people from all over the world go through a place like McCarran.
When you're in a place like that, you gotta stay clean. Practice this, please. Come on, it's gross. Guys, we'll be right back.
And we are back. We are now in the fourth segment where we take your messages, your emails, and there we go. You just send them to us right here. And we will talk about in the fourth segment what you want to talk about, provided, of course, it's what we want to talk about.
We have to agree with what you want to talk about. That's the kicker. And keep in mind, you can also check out all of the shows. We have them on video. You can stream them with audio if you like at totallyunprepared.info. Everything is there.
Yep.
Just pick up that webpage.
On Facebook, if you search for Totally Unprepared, we have a page there.
YouTube.
YouTube, yeah.
But this has everything there for you to be able to follow if you were going to go to YouTube.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to read a portion of an email from viewer Steve. Steve was very articulate in abundance, and he wrote us a tome.
A novel, if you will.
And I want to be clear, just because of time constraints on Bill's part and mine, if you write us something extremely lengthy, it's dubious we're going to get through it in the time we have before the show. But there was something in Steve's, his entire message was interesting, don't get me wrong. But there was a particular line that jumped out at Bill and I, and it was from Theodore Roosevelt. So, Steve, thank you for that. Bill, you want to share that with the audience?
Theodore Roosevelt once said, quote, "If people will not control themselves from within, then they must be controlled from without."
Now, the reason I thought that that was such an important, why it jumped off the page at me, because on the Dave Champion Show, this is a constant theme, and I think it's a constant tension in a free society between, and we see this a lot in any area of law where the government comes along and wants to say, all of you need to do it this way, okay, to protect this group or these people. People who, I'll give you an example. Anti-discrimination laws are invisible to me. It's like rape laws. Oh, there's a law about raping on the books? I could care less because I never intend to rape. Right. It's invisible to me. Anti-discrimination laws. I never intend to discriminate, and I never, probably ever will, so anti-discrimination laws are invisible to me. But people become incensed, more so with the anti-discrimination laws. And I think some of them become incensed because, you know, well, I'm not going to do this. Well, they may or may not, but the tension is in society and in law and in government that we know, you know and I know, especially from our backgrounds, but everybody just living and breathing should know, there's people who will not control themselves and do the right thing. They must have the clamp put on them or punished severely after the fact because they have decided, they have chosen, that's the way they're going to live their life.
Dave, I will say this. In my ideas of freedom and liberty, in a free society where people have individual liberties, there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. Or you will lose the freedom and liberties because some organization, in this case government, would come in and they will start clamping down on that because people are not controlling themselves, or you have neighbors that are not kicking in to keep the people who are out of line and keep them in line. Say, hey, you're going to screw this up for all of us.
Right.
So that's really responsibility of everyone in a free society where people have true liberty. And you know, I've actually had people tell me, look, I don't care about liberty, I want freedom. You can have freedom without liberty, but you cannot have liberty without freedom. Liberty is far more important. Right. You know, you can have, basically in China, you're free, but there are no liberties.
Right. So my definition of liberty is freedom constrained only by a responsibility to respect the equal rights of others. That's my definition of liberty.
Yeah, don't do something that will harm or curtail someone else who's otherwise doing no harm.
Right.
And it's pretty simple. I would see that as more of a golden rule.
I've also on my show, I've referred to it as the harm equation. As simple as that. If you're doing something that's harming somebody, don't do that. And people want to, have you ever noticed people want to finagle about that?
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, well, you know, I'm not really harming them if, dude, yeah, why are we having this discussion? Just don't do it.
This is ridiculous justification.
Yes.
People have gotten to a point of justification. I have to say, I love how people will sink to the lowest level. I shouldn't say I love, that's obviously in jest. Where people they're trying to become a mini attorney. Well, it's not what I did or what I said, it's what you can prove. You know, it's not. It's what's right and what's wrong. I teach my kids that. I don't teach my kids, hey, do whatever the hell you want, as long as nobody can prove that was you that did that. If they can't prove it, have at it. Hats off. Go do whatever you feel. No, that is not the way I raise my kids. I raise my kids, do what's right.
Right.
You know, everybody knows the difference between right and wrong. If you don't know what's right or wrong, that's why we have institutional facilities. And is to be able to curb your behavior.
If there's a wobbler, you know which way to lean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the part that kills me. People want to set up a dynamic where they'll claim there's a wobbler. And then what they're really trying to claim is that they're free, that they're good to go to actually fall to the side of harming somebody. It's like, well,
yeah, the lower road.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. The lower road. It's like, dude, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Be a man. Be a freaking human being. Yeah, I'm getting the sign back there. You almost did it, Dave.
No beep. Congratulations.
I caught myself. Yeah, because I'm getting a little passionate here. I'll tell you a funny story. On my show, I've been dealing a lot with the desire of a lot of people, most notably Christians, to discriminate against homosexuals in the workplace and in the, not so much the workplace, in the business setting. And when they want to justify that, there's been this thing where, well, what about if the baker was black and the Ku Klux Klan came in and wanted a Ku Klux Klan cake? What about that? Don't they have the right to discriminate? It's like, wait a second, hang on. I presume you're casting the Ku Klux Klan in this scenario as the evildoers. Yeah, you would think so? And I make my point, you're not helping yourself. The Ku Klux Klan is a Christian organization.
Would that be a KKK?
Yes, I mean, well, KKK, yeah. I mean, what does the Ku Klux Klan burn on the lawn?
A cross.
A cross, right? You know, it's like, you guys are not helping your case. But that's what I mean about trying to create a justification. Well, you know, it's like, just don't do it.
And how
just
about
don't
this?
do it.
You know, when you have these cases where you have someone using their religious justification to discriminate against someone who's homosexual, you notice it never seems to be against two women, lesbians. Have you ever noticed that?
Oh, I do.
It always seems to be against two guys.
Yeah, 99%.
Yeah, you never find where the women are all up in arms over it.
And the same guy who's saying, well, two guys together, that's intolerable, that's sinful, that's this, and then he's watching, lesbian porn at night.
Well, and I also got to say it to you because I experienced this one time, one particular call when I was a cop, and in this case, you had a couple of guys who were gay that felt that they were being victimized by their neighbors in this apartment complex who didn't much care for them being gay. But at the same time, these two gay guys, one of the two more so than the other, but both of them collectively, were trying to
annoy the hell out of him.
Pardon the term here, trying to ram down their throats that these guys were gay. It's like everybody has to know that we are gay. We eat, sleep, live, breathe, everything all about being gay, and the whole world should know it. And we're happy, and we're gonna, paint our car silly things and go out honking our horn. It's gonna be hee hee instead of Yeah, they lived it to be homosexual.
They were advertising big time.
They were, and I don't care what you do in your bedroom.
Right.
That's fine.
I'm with you.
But you don't have to come out and start blasting to me and the rest of the world and expect me to have to sit and listen to all about it. I'm not going to go, hey, I don't know. I know the rainbow has been stolen by the homosexual community to symbolize that they're homosexual.
Sure.
And that's fine. But what's the heterosexual symbol? Like there's also the purple triangle.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but I don't have that on the back window of my 1974 Chevy pickup as I'm rolling down, woohoo! With a rebel flag on the top. I mean, that's not what I'm doing.
I've always said the same thing. I don't care what people do, but I don't walk into a party, meet some new people, and say, well, I bang chicks, but when a gay person walks in and they sashay and the wrist is going like this and yoo-hoo, it's the same thing, right? They're screaming in their own way. It's like, don't do that.
It is, but here's my deal. If someone wants to do that, that's fine. But don't get offended when I finish my drink, set it down, and leave. Because if you want to act flamboyantly, something along that line, I don't have a problem with you doing that. I just don't want to be around it. Yeah. It's the same time, I don't mind if you fart. Just don't fart in my car while I'm there.
Yeah, and I could care less if somebody's flamboyant, but I'm just making the point. They're screaming their sexual orientation in a way that I would not.
Yeah. And sometimes, you can tell somebody's sexual orientation from 300 yards away.
Sure.
And there's just, it's hard to describe, but you can just tell. Okay, I get it. That's fine.
The funniest thing is people would always say, well, I don't want to work with any homosexuals. This is when the whole gay thing kicked off, several years ago. And I'm like, dude, you do. And they're like, no, I don't. I'm like, dude, do you not realize that the flamboyant ones are a tiny fraction of all the homosexuals? Most homosexuals, first of all, most homosexuals are not out. And most homosexuals conduct themselves like anybody else.
Yeah, you know, I one time ran a division for a large company, and we ran 24/7, and I was a manager of this division. And we had a whole bunch of women that worked there and a few men who worked there. I was the only heterosexual male who worked in this entire division, and we had 22 or 23 people in there. I think there was 4 guys other than me that worked there, all of them homosexual. One was flamboyant to the point of just being annoying. He was just annoying.
That, yes.
But you know, I mean, he performed his job function. I mean, he ran copy machines. He did fine at that. But
and the other 3 were just ordinary folks.
Yeah, just ordinary dudes. Yeah, ordinary dudes. They'd had girlfriends at one time or another. Maybe they still did. Maybe some of them might be. This is years ago. I don't know if they might be married now. Who knows what?
Yeah.
But it's like, don't bring it to her. Just do what you're going to do.
And all the more important, but you as the boss, you didn't really know or care. No. I mean, you knew, but it's kind of casual.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Yes. Why can't more people be like that?
I don't know. I just don't get it. But yeah, when it comes to the whole discrimination thing or doing what's right and wrong, you know, just do the right thing. And for God's sake, please raise your children that way.
Yes.
Our society has taken such a nosedive due to the lack of decent parenting, where people are justifying all of their bad deeds and showing their children how to do that rather than doing the right thing. Please.
We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.